who loved to entertain children with his practical pranks and pratfalls during his stint with Dr. Oddfellow's Carnival of Thrills. He had escaped a poor and highly abusive family years earlier to run away and join the circus, leaving behind his younger brother Eddie. But underneath the grease paint and the clown nose, he was a twisted murderer. He was wanted for the abduction and disappearance of several small children throughout the southern states. Police officials and the FBI soon caught on that the missing children followed a pattern that led them closer and closer to the traveling freak show. On Halloween 1920, the police were closing in on the clown killer, and fearing capture, Jack revealed his sinister secret to Dr. Oddfellow in hopes of a possible concealment. The doctor, himself wanted by police for the accidental death of several patrons in a freak circus accident years earlier under a different name, was not sympathetic to Jack's cause. He quickly admonished him for potentially bringing the police down upon the entire band of miscreants, and he asked Jack to show him what he had done with the bodies of the children. Jack revealed the bodies of 13 children hidden in the confines of 3 small trunks that were kept in his traveling coach. Fearing the worst, Dr. Oddfellow had Jack murdered and his body hidden within the traveling carnival's House of Horrors as an exhibit, along with the bodies of the children. Years later, the carnival was sold by Dr. Oddfellow, and the various dark rides and exhibits were split and sent to various owners around the states, including the House of Horrors and its grisly secret. 60 years later, in the fall of 1980, a television crew from the BBC was documenting the great dark rides of America. They journeyed throughout the eastern seaboard looking for the forgotten carnival rides and attractions, and stumbled upon the House of Horrors as it sat abandoned in a Louisiana junkyard. The crew asked permission to film the interior, and pried open the doors of the forgotten relic to step inside. The smell of decay was overpowering as the bright camera light illuminated the darkened corridors. Moving past the faded walls and hanging fabric, the smell began to increase. The cameraman retched as he panned his camera towards a series of trunks, and behind the trunks was a large wooden box stenciled like a children's toy. One letter filled each side of the box. J-A-C-K. The cameraman steadied his camera as the host of the show investigated the box. He found a large crank on the side of the box and turned it. It started to move with some resistance, but after a few twists, it freely moved in a clockwise rotation. A clanky musical melody played out as the host turned it. Suddenly, however, the music stopped and wouldn't start again with its continued rotations. The camera light suddenly died, and then the crank rotated a few spins on its own. The top of the box flew open and a form sprung out. Affixed to a giant spring was the decomposing body of Jack Schmidt. After a thorough police investigation, the bodies of 13 children, as well as the body of Jack, were shipped to the local Louisiana coroner's office for further examination. Around midnight on Halloween, the van carrying the body in the box, Jack, disappeared into the Louisiana swamp in a freak accident. Later that week, the bodies of the BBC cameraman and the host were found as victims of a grisly and unsolved murder. Throughout the following years, urban legend retellings of the tale started, with a corresponding story about the decomposing body of Jack killing again. The legend states that the Jack is searching for Dr. Oddfellow in a thirst for vengeance. The legend also states that Jack will reward anyone who releases him with his toy tomb by turning the crank with a very special reward. And in 2000, Universal Studios bought the old props from the old House of Horrors, including what was sold as the box that Jack was trapped in for so many years. Apparently, some poor fool tried to test his claim. and Jack was unleashed and on the unsuspecting Halloween Horror Nights guests for the first, but certainly not the last time. Jack's presence lingered in some form or fashion throughout the years until he was resurrected, but has been turned back into a mortal, along with the other icons for HHN's Sweet 16 celebration. The now mortal Jack was soon caught by authorities and committed to Shady Brook Asylum for the criminally insane, an institution that had suffered an inmate escape a few years earlier. Though often isolated in the maximum security ward, Jack's mere presence seemed to have an adverse effect on the unstable population, who started emulating the crazed clown, much to the staff's dismay. Eventually, the inmates started a mass riot, gruesomely tortured the hospital staff, and put Jack in charge of the facility. During the chaos, Jack found records that his former boss and murderer, Dr. Oddfellow, was still alive, but presumably now a very old man, since he had been on the job since the 1920s and running a small traveling carnival. Jack left Shady Brook, traveling for the depravity of Dr. Oddfellow's dark carnival and emporium. In the dark of the night, Jack stalked into the tents and took his long overdue vengeance. And when he emerged, he was changed during incarceration. Jack got a taste of what it was like to run a show, and he desired to be the ringmaster of his own carnival. He dressed himself in the bright red coat and boots of a proper ringmaster. He also adorned himself with a crude top hat and terrible trinkets of his liking. He completed the transformation with Dr. Oddfellow's prized possession, which also presumably what kept Oddfellow alive in motion for 80 years, a silver-headed cane of souls. Putting the carnival on hiatus, Jack spent the next few months traveling the world to find the right sideshow acts for his deadly Carnival of Carnage. He gathered a plethora of monsters, mutants, madmen, and maniacs, many with egos nearly as large as his own, luring them with the promises of fame, fortune, show business, and, of course, plenty of fresh victims. And after nearly a year of preparation, Ringmaster Jack opened his dark Carnival of Carnage in Orlando, Florida.
You think you know me? You don't know Jack!